What should you do when the police approach you when you're out on surveillance? I would really like to know about your encounters with the police while on surveillance and how you handled the situation. Let me know in the comments below. Hey, welcome to the PI Guy. Tips, tricks, and advice for professional private investigators just like you. My name is John Morris. I am a licensed professional private investigator in Colorado. Surveillance has many challenges, to be sure. First, the fact that you need to stay hidden inside your car is challenge enough. Then there is the humdrum of sitting inside your surveillance vehicle for hours upon hours at a time with little to no activity. Being a surveillance investigator is not like any other job you have had. I am sure in most jobs today you interact with fellow workers, customers, and other individuals on a regular basis. Not so much when you are conducting surveillance. In fact, interaction with other people is the one thing you usually do not want to happen while you are out on surveillance. Now, regardless of how careful you have been, regardless of how well you think you are hidden, and regardless of whether you wish to interact with the police or anyone else for that matter, folks, it is going to happen from time to time. Over the years, I have had many times where I had the police or other people come up to me while on surveillance. Hey, you may be saying, hey, if you're good, no one will ever notice you. But folks, I am here to tell you there are situations where it simply does not matter how good you are, you will be noticed. There is one case in particular that stands out to me. It was an infidelity case, and the client knew his wife would be leaving to see her boyfriend for lunch. He had intel from neighbors and friends that indicated she often had a babysitter come over. Then she left on one particular day every week right around noon. Now, to top it off, she was close friends with some of the neighbors too, as they had lived there in that neighborhood most of their life. Now, you tell me, how do you handle a midday start for surveillance? Go down in the comments below and let me know. I would love to hear from you. You see, folks, most surveillances start in the wee hours of the morning, long before sunrise, long before most people are up, and long before any coffee pots have brewed their first pot of coffee. It is actually a plus in most cases for a surveillance investigator to be able to go out and check out the neighborhood, locate a good stationary position, and get all set up in the cover of the darkness. But I am here to tell you, folks, not all surveillance, to be sure, starts in the wee hours of the morning, and not all surveillance affords you the opportunity to easily hide yourself when you get on scene. Such was with this case, where I had to be out about 11 o'clock in the morning and get set up, and not only did I have to start in the late morning, long after the sun had risen, I also had to be ready to follow the subject, and I knew there was a high probability of her leaving and of the babysitter coming over, and I needed to obtain video of everything that occurred. To top it off, this is what we would refer to as a high-profile case. Yep, this was not just a regular neighborhood, not just a regular subject, and not just your everyday run-of-the-mill client. There were multiple exits from the neighborhood, each leading to a major roadway or highway, and sitting on the house was a must to know when she was leaving and to know if the kids were with her. Now, in a lot of these cases, I would go out with a guide, such as a magnetic sign on my car, like a realtor or road survey, something like that. But I knew I would have limited time to react, and you do not want to be following your target with a noticeable sign stuck to the side of your car. So I just went into the neighborhood, found a shady spot to park about a block and a half away from the residence, and I sat there. People were outside doing lawn work, talking, walking, and playing with their children. You name it, there were folks all over. The guise I prefer to use for this is what I call a reactionary guise. I don't make myself up or my vehicle up to look like anything in particular. I just have a well thought out story in case anyone asks me what I am doing. This story, many times, goes something like this. I am a process server. I have some papers here, and I am waiting for somebody down the street. I also make sure that I have some papers sitting in my passenger seat that I can tap on when I say this to help the guys out. In most cases, this will suffice for most situations, and if you must go out a few days in a row, well, they just think you are still out there looking for that person down the street to serve some papers to. In fact, I had one case where a little old lady came out and asked me what I was doing parking in front of her house every day. So I used this guise, and then she offered to get me a cold drink. And yes, I took her up on it. In fact, she said, you know, you would be more comfortable if you parked in our driveway by the back garage in the shade. So that is where I parked while I finished that case. Now, I wasn't out on this high-profile case for more than 20 minutes, and here comes the babysitter going up to the front door and walking right inside the house. Now, the babysitter did not drive to the residence. She walked from the house, get this, right across the street from where I was parked. And you won't believe what happened next, folks. As I was getting my video of the lady walking up to and entering the house, I see her husband standing in the garage watching me the whole time. Now that sinking, yucky feeling sets in, and I know I may have some explaining to do. Now, I had all of my dark tinted windows rolled up, so the likelihood of him seeing what I was doing is slim, but that never helps the nerves much when these things occur. A few minutes go by, then the garage door opens, and here comes the wife, the babysitter, and the 2 kids, and they stand there in the driveway watching in my general direction. At this time, I am about as crouched down in my seat as I can be, with them staring towards me and the husband standing there in the garage staring towards me too. And I feel like the entire neighborhood is just standing there staring right at me. But the worst part has yet to come, folks. Not only am I exposed on center stage, but then part 2 of the story begins. Now, I don't know if this is a comedy or a horror show at this point. I suddenly see the flashing red and blues coming around the corner. But not just one corner, folks. One from the front and one from the rear. Yes, 2 patrol cars are heading right towards me. I then realize the gig is up. I roll down my windows, and then I do one final thing I can do to save the case. I called the other investigators, and I let them know they were on their own and she should be leaving anytime now. That is right. I had 2 other investigators waiting patiently outside at each exit point to take the lead follow when she left. Now, I had a good idea I was going to get made by someone on this case, and even if I didn't get made, I knew there was a good chance I may not be able to leave right away when she did or risk being made. And this was a high-profile case, and I always use multiple investigators on these types of cases to ensure the integrity of the investigation. The cops approached my car cautiously as I sat there with all 4 windows rolled down, hands up on the steering wheel, waiting for them to ask the big question. "Hello, sir. What are you doing just sitting here in your car all day?" My reply, "I have been here about 20 minutes, officer. I am a process server. I have some papers here, and I am waiting for somebody down the street." They both look at the papers I tapped, look at each other. Then one says, "Okay, well, next time you should give us a call before you go out." Then when the neighbors, and he nods towards the babysitter's husband standing there in his garage, call us, we know who is out here. Then he says, "Can I see your driver's license, registration, and proof of insurance, please?" So I quickly hand those over to him. He takes a quick glance, then he suddenly notices my PI license I had handed to him as well. He nods at me, nods at the other officer, says, "Everything looks to be in order here." Then he hands me my stuff back and says, "You be safe out there, sir." Then he walks over to the babysitter's husband, still standing in the garage. I can hear him explaining to him that I was a process server waiting for someone down the street, and it had nothing to do with him. Then the 2 officers got in their patrol cars and left, and I just rolled up my windows and I sat there in my car. Now, I had noticed the subject had left earlier and the babysitter and the kids had gone back inside the residence. So I called my other investigators, and lo and behold, they were sitting in the restaurant of one of those swanky downtown hotels where she had drove to and met a well-dressed young man. They had then gone into the hotel, checked in at the front desk, and then they went to grab a bite to eat at the restaurant. How romantic. When she got back home about 3 hours later, I was sitting there waiting for her, and I grabbed my video of her arriving, and no one was any the wiser. Man, I love it when a plan comes together, and if you want to hear more about handling high-profile cases, check out this video.